Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today checking out a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes out as from Nick. Hey Bryan, it's been a while since my last selection. This is one from a very small time band that deserved a wider audience. This is the penultimate song from their second release, a 6-track EP. Hope it catches your interest. We're going to be looking at a group called the Human Flight Committee. This song is The Fall of a City, The Rise of a People. Alright, let's dive into it. See what they're bringing to the table today. Definitely a small-time band, though. Most of their songs on this album, including this track right here, have no numbers for the number of plays. They have 71 monthly listeners, definitely on the smaller side of things. Very understated beginning to this track, just kind of existing.
Your eyes are cold enough for now, enough to break these sacred vows. So many words mean nothing. For what it's worth, I'm still around, despite these places we've burnt down. The sights do all the talking.
Very interesting dual guitar line there. Love the harmonies. A little bit of compression on that background vocal. Increased intensity on the second verse, still a bit on the lighter side, but the hi-hat is just doing so much work at providing this momentum. Kind of getting some early AFI vibes from it too. Just specifically the beginning of this section. A 3-chord phrase? Okay. So it's okay. It's still 24 beats, but it's broken up into groups of 8? Okay. Very interesting dual guitar work. Okay. Yeah, I could get behind that. So the same thing we were playing on the guitars, the same chord. Interesting. This is wild. I agree. So is that a transition then? I want to look real quick. Okay, yeah, it does transition into the next track rather nicely. Because I was going to say, that is a wild ending to the song then, if... Because here's the thing, I kind of saw the song in two parts. The post-hardcore first 5 minutes and the electronic latter 2 minutes. And at the end of the post-hardcore section, we had this ritardando that kind of took us into this slower section. Kind of felt kind of like a breakdown, but without all the breaking. It was just the down. We just slowed down quite a bit. And then we ended up with that final riff that ended up being the harmonic blueprint for the synth coming in. And I was like, that's weird. You know, we introduced this new section just to introduce another new section. It was kind of cool hearing the callback of hearing this guitar riff become the synth idea. But then the synth idea doesn't go anywhere that's relevant to where we had started. And I'm like, what is the point of all this? They just sort of threw in the second song at the end of it. But it works as a transition, I suppose. The concept that is more prominent to the album than to the song itself. I mean, maybe we'll look at the lyrics and I'll be like, oh, you know, a massive shift there makes a lot of sense. What's going on in whatever story they're trying to tell. But from a musical perspective, We kind of went the exact opposite. We threw the car into reverse and then decided to also make a 90-degree turn left. And so we're going backwards in a totally different direction. And it was a little bonkers, but I enjoyed it. Um, there's a lot of really great guitar ideas in here, particularly when both of the guitarists are doing the same thing. I love the ideas that they're engaging with. Now, sometimes it's just harmony, right? We look at the chorus, and both of our guitars are playing the same rhythm. They're playing chords. They're just a little different. They're providing harmony against each other. But there are some really wild sections in here. I remember there was one triplet feeling section. I didn't quite get a grasp on what they were doing, but they were working in groups of three. But I don't know if the time was in three. So if it was still in 4/4, like almost every other bit of the song, it probably would have had groups of three and then two, which add up to eight, which is 2 bars of 4 beats. But regardless, there was a focus on groupings of three, and one of the guitars, I think it was the right one, was rising in pitch or like coming up and then hitting something in the middle. But the one on the left was just descent. It would do like 3 descending ideas, then start back, and then 3 descending ideas. But the weird thing is that I don't think they were starting at the same time, right? So they're both going in opposite directions, but like it felt like one of the instruments they started their ascent, for instance, on beat 2, where the other one started their descent on beat 1. So not only were they going in different directions, but they were going in different directions at different times. And it was wild. It was like a whirlwind. I'm still trying to process it. It was very fun to listen to in the time, though. Um, yeah, just lots of really interesting ideas like that throughout this entire track. The guitars, if there's one thing to focus on, just sort of on a second listen, blot out everything else and try to focus on what the two guitars are doing and how they're playing off of each other. And I think you'll find a lot of really cool ideas in this track. It's certainly what stood out to me the most here. I do like the general flow of this track as well. It is verse, chorus, bridge, electronic outro. That's normal, right? That's part of the old A B C B pattern. No, the outro is definitely an interesting direction to go, but everything else follows the verse, chorus, bridge concept. But we do have this really nice elongated intro. It takes up like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes of the beginning of the song. It felt like it went on forever, and it was just there. It didn't care about anything. We had this beautiful but simplistic guitar idea existing, just outlining some chords, playing single notes at a time. I don't think there was any full chord strumming on it. The drums played along sometimes and then not other times. The drums would just like take an entire bar off and then come back in a bar later. Just like nothing happened, just pick right back up on the beat. It was very, honestly, kind of soothing. It wasn't trying to do anything. It wasn't trying to be anything. It was just being. I don't know. I want to hit the lyrics and see what this song is about, because after this section, we take some of the ideas here and form something with a little bit more energy for our opening verse. From here, we go into our chorus, which is more energy, and primarily more energy from the vocals. The vocals in the verses are a bit more understated. They are pushed a little bit more into the mix, and they're just quieter in their delivery. The chorus tends to have more pressure, more presence, more projection. The 3 P's of vocals, I suppose. And it just felt more full-bodied, more confident. And then we heard more confidence in our second chorus. Our second verse has more confidence than the first as well. We also have the extra energy from the hi-hat and the drums. what I'm getting at is that despite the verses being quieter and the choruses being louder, we still have a general rise of intensity where we have our verse and then our chorus. Our verse comes down a little bit, but not as far as the first verse, and our second chorus is even higher than our first. There is a general linear rise despite the peaks and valleys. I love this, right? So I'm a fan, right, of just the verses are here, the choruses are here, and then you just alternate between these two moments. Those songs work beautifully. Not even just like, oh, a majority of people listen to that, so it must work. No, like even I legitimately enjoy music like that. But there's something about writing a track like this where it feels more like writing a story, a novel, a film, which tends to be mapped out like that roller coaster where you reach a peak and then you dip down a little bit, not as far down, and you reach a new peak, and then you dip down, but not quite as low as your other two dips, and then you reach a new peak, and that's usually your Act 3 climax, and then it's, downhill from there. You got to get back to the ground on your roller coaster. So that tends to be the way that stories are mapped out, and I love how that same energy is present here. I can still feel the highs and lows, the peaks and valleys, but the song as a whole has new heights to expand to. And by the time we reach the bridge, where the vocalist is full on screaming, where we have two guitars that are at full volume just kind of doing their own thing, creating a lot of noise there, the drummer has completely opened up here, the bassist is playing the same thing the bassist has been playing the whole time. The bassist doesn't really amp anything up, but the bassist is a foundation that allows us to feel everything as full bodied as we can. They fill out the low end for us. It's a very functional role, but it's an important role that the bass fills here. By this point, though, we've hit the climax. This is the big moment. We don't get any bigger than this, and it is bigger than the other big moments that we've had. This is the climax of the song. From here, we dip down. We have the retardando into the semi breakdown. Like I said, it's not really breaky, but it is down. We've taken the tempo down a little bit. And then we have our epilogue, which was nothing like anything we had heard before, which is fine. But just the general flow of this track works phenomenally, and I love music. I always get so overjoyed when I hear songs like this. I know I bring it up every single time. Like, oh, this song's got the rising peaks and valleys thing. But yeah, I do think it's an important quality, and I bring it up because I want to see it more in music. Now, I already mentioned that we have the dual guitar lines that give us harmony, but we actually have another level of harmony in here, which is the vocals. At times, we have two vocalists. This primarily happens in the chorus. And not only do they provide harmony, but also textural layering. The background vocal tends to have a little bit of extra grit or natural compression put on their cleans, and I think it adds a lot of character to the choruses when we get it. I don't think we had it on the first chorus, which was just two straight clean lines, but our second chorus introduced a little bit of this grit, which was not only fantastic for this section, helping it separate itself from our first verse while also presenting something new to our ears, but also getting us teed up for the full scream section that we would hear not too long after this one. Now, all of this rock stuff culminates in the outro, our epilogue. I don't really have a lot of thoughts about it, but I am perplexed by it. It lends me to question who the Human Flight Committee is, what they were trying to achieve. I see this album came out in 2004. The requester, I don't know why I thought I said that wrong, had mentioned this was their second EP. On Spotify, it's the first thing that they have, so I have to see if I can find someone on YouTube who has their first EP, because I will be digging into this. It also has their 2008 LP, and that is it. Just these two albums. But it was released in 2004. And I'm trying to think of what music was like in 2004. I kind of remember bands like Select Start doing the electronic emo thing. I know bands like Get Scared were toying around with it with at least one track off of their, man, I can't remember what that album's called. Their EP, their first EP though. They had five straightforward post-hardcore tracks and then one that was emo lyrically and musically, but electronic sonically. I kind of remember post-hardcore and emo kind of coalescing with this electronic side. And we even had bands like Attack Attack who were taking crabcore and putting electronic sounds in it. So it's not like this was completely uncommon at the time. But I don't think I'd heard it as distinctly separated as this. They literally wrote a post-hardcore song and then tacked on some electronic stuff at the end of it. It wasn't an attempt to smash them together. And it makes me wonder what the relationship to either of these genres are. If I listen to the rest of this album, what am I in store for? Because I think both sides are done competently. The indie rock post-hardcore stuff is produced a little, uh, I don't want to use the word poorly, but it is a lower fidelity production. It seems accurate for a band in the 2000s who weren't exactly a big band, didn't have a lot of press or fandom, probably didn't have the money to do many takes or hire a good engineer. Maybe they did it in-house. Maybe this was a bedroom recording before bedroom producers were really a thing. So the production matches what I'm expecting, but the electronic side, it's not. It's done in such a. Oh wait, no, where was I going with that? The production is a bit rough, but musically, this is solid. I think this band could have gone somewhere if they had been noticed. I think they were on to a lot of great things, and they remind me of groups like. Is it Ruben I'm thinking of, or Failure? Probably Ruben, right? Dang. Well, maybe I'll put in a comment when I remember what band I'm talking about. But they remind me of bands doing similar sounds that we're kind of on the cusp of something new. I think that this combination of an indie rock sound, especially with the intro, with more of the screaming aggressiveness of something hardcore, post-hardcore primarily, I suppose, coming in the choruses and the bridge, this was a sound that we would hear a lot of moving forward, merging the soft and the heavy. And bringing in this digital element, I think also would have helped separate them and create a unique identity for them within a sound that would eventually become rather uh, cluttered. And yet they just never got noticed. But aside from the rock part, which I just said, is competently done, the ending is also well done. Again, I have a hard time finding any through lines between the two sections. There's no motifs or themes that get carried over other than the initial passing of the baton from the guitar to the synth. So I have a hard time hearing how they're the same song, but it's well done. There's some neat ideas in here on the production side of things, some rhythmic ideas that can really only be done with electronic, or can most easily be done with electronic music. It's not just a rock band who said, hey, let's put some digital stuff in here. It's, a band who knows how to play rock, and at least somebody knows how to produce electronic music well. Neither side feels hamstrung because it's not their forte, is what I'm getting at. It makes me hope that they do more of this in their other tracks, but maybe from a perspective of mine, try to put it together a little bit more. Although having electronic interludes between tracks is an interesting way to go about doing it, and I would not be upset if that was the ploy here, where every song had 30 seconds to a minute at the end of them to act as electronic instrumental interludes moving into the next track and connecting them all sonically. That would be pretty cool, I think. Let me see if I can find some lyrics. It's kind of tough to do on some of these more obscure bands, and we'll take the video from there. So I couldn't find lyrics. but I did find something more perplexing. I couldn't find any other sources of their music. They do have a Bandcamp, but it only features their 2008 LP, Oh, When the Animals Unionize. It does not have the album that we just listened to called Small Business Solutions. And it doesn't seem to have their first EP either. So that one's still a bit lost. I'm hoping someone's uploaded it to YouTube on some obscure channel. Here's the weird part though. Despite their latest album coming out in 2008, they have an active MySpace promoting current shows. They played back in November 11th. That's on their Facebook banner at the top of their page. And they had a post from just a few days ago saying that they performed on Friday, the 23rd. Was that Friday? Yeah. They had a gig on Friday, the 23rd. They're still active. They just aren't putting out new music, but they're still playing. How often do you hear about that? Small band, never really gets noticed, doesn't get picked up, stops making music but keeps performing? I mean, maybe they took some time off. You know, they were gone for a decade. It's 2018. They're like, yeah, we should play again. That's a bad time to decide you start going live again. But little do they know what happens in 2019. But, yeah, you just don't hear that very often, which is pretty cool. There's a local band that I learned about around the same time. I think it was like '07 is when I learned about Monk Tongue, and I went and saw a couple of their shows while they were, playing them around here in Orlando. I bought their CD, their first LP. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the few people who actually have one. I don't know how many of those are still floating around. Uh, but while trying to make their second LP, they disbanded. And as far as I know, they're still doing their own things. I think the lead singer's still making music on his own, but the other players, I haven't been able to find anything about them. So I don't know if they're still doing it or not. But like if I found out that Monk Tongue was putting a show on, trying to revive this, this old band of theirs from the 2000s, I would absolutely go support that. That's awesome. So yeah, I think that's cool and unique and kind of strange. Just don't hear about that every day. But without lyrics, I can't dive into this anymore, and it makes the ending of the track even more perplexing for me since I don't know. I mean, the song's called The Fall of a City, The Rise of a People. I think that there's some pretty obvious capitalistic, well, anti-capitalistic overtones to that. But I suppose it could also lean into something a bit more leaning into anarchy, anarchist territory. I don't know. Again, it's kind of pointing in a direction, but it's kind of vague what specific direction it's in. The lyrics would have helped with that. Maybe I don't have a Facebook. I wonder if I can find an email of theirs. They also have an Instagram, but I don't have an Instagram either. I want to contact them and see if they can't send me some lyrics or point me in a direction to that first EP or something. Well, anyways, those are my thoughts on The Fall of a City, The Rise of a People by the Human Flight Committee. Let me know what your thoughts are. Did you enjoy this track? Was there anything that stood out to you? Do you have your own thoughts, opinions, ideas of what's going on in here? Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I suppose in an unusual decision, I'll also add a link to their Facebook in the description as well as their Bandcamp. They're a small group. Might as well try to direct some people to them. As I've always said in the past, when it comes to small bands, I'd like to reduce the friction it takes for fans to find them. If you enjoyed what you listened to, just get the link in, the description instead of trying to search it down through web searches or Spotify and stuff like that. I'll do the work for you. So yeah, I'll do that today. A little different than usual. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.